Coming up, Tesla is partnering with a tribal nation for a second time to sell electric cars. We'll hear about a new curriculum to teach the histories and cultures of the Confederated tribes of Siletz Indians. Plus, a Rapid City hotel ban on Native patrons lands in court. I am Aaliyah Chavez. Join us for those interviews, plus headlines from the ICT Newscast.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
The Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication at Arizona State University is a proud supporter of Indian Country Today. Students at Cronkite News and Gaylord College at the University of Oklahoma cover Indigenous communities together. This important work is distributed by more than 100 news organizations. This collaboration provides a much-needed boost to coverage of Native American communities nationwide. Learn more at cronkitenews.azpbs.org.
This is the ICT Newscast with Aaliyah Chavez.
Ku'otsi Hopa. Thank you for joining us. We begin in Rapid City, South Dakota, where hotel owners are being sued by the U.S. Department of Justice for allegedly discriminating against Native Americans. The Grand Gateway Hotel is the backdrop for the case. Earlier this year, on at least 2 occasions, Connie and her son Nicholas did not allow Native customers to room there. This was following a fatal shooting at the hotel. Connie also allegedly told other Rapid City hotel owners that she did not want Native Americans at her hotel or at the hotel's bar. She posted to her Facebook account saying she would not allow a Native American to enter. Native people in Rapid City protested outside of the hotel in large numbers. The Justice Department said in a statement that restricting access to a hotel based on a person's race is prohibited by federal law. Nick Tilson, the president and CEO of Indian Collective, joins us later in the program to share more. Well, a 79-year-old citizen of the Oneida Indian Nation is setting records. Ray Fournier set 27 world records in early October at the 2022 Amateur Athletic Union's Powerlifting World Championships. He also earned 8 gold medals at the competition in Las Vegas. That made him the event's top senior male athlete of the year in the powerlifting award. Fournier has been competing here for 8 years and has set new records each time. He said that by training safely, you can live a healthy life at any age. And he was sponsored by the Oneida Indian Nation to attend this year's competition. And we'd like to extend a congratulations to Ray Fournier for his impressive performance. In Canada, new data shows only 18% of federal government employees have taken any Indigenous sensitivity training. One Indigenous member of Parliament says the numbers are disappointing, but not surprising, given that the training is not a job requirement. Here's APTN's Fraser Needham with the story.
About 18% of nearly 320,000. That's the number of federal employees who have taken any one of 3 Indigenous sensitivity courses offered by the Public Service. The NDP asked for the numbers recently, and MP Lori Idlout says they are disappointing but not surprising, since the training is not a job requirement.
One of the terms that I've unfortunately had to say whenever it comes to Indigenous issues is that we're forced to experience incremental justice. And this is just one of those areas where the federal government is just making changes incrementally.
Educating public servants on Indigenous history and colonialism is one of the TRC's calls to action. Public Service Alliance Canada President Chris Aylward says the union wanted to make such training a mandatory part of the collective agreement, but was told no by the federal government.
And we were just outright refused by Treasury Board. They said no. And the reason, the rationale for saying no was that this is already happening. And as you just pointed out, yes, it's happening. It's happening off the side of somebody's desk. And we got what, 16% of the entire federal public sector workforce attending these sessions. That's simply not good enough.
But Brenda Gunn of the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation says the government needs to look beyond just making Indigenous sensitivity training mandatory.
It can also be included, though, especially in senior levels, in performance evaluations, right? So as part of people's jobs, are they recognizing that they need to have this basic competency as part of delivering Canada's broader services and policy objectives towards reconciliation?
In an emailed statement, Treasury Board told AP10 it is up to each individual government department whether or not Indigenous sensitivity training is a job requirement. Fraser Needham, AP10 National News, Ottawa.
Staying with news above the medicine line, one of Canada's most decorated Indigenous war veterans and prominent First Nations activists was honored last week in a special way. Sergeant Tommy Prince was from the Broken Head Ojibwe Nation. For his service in the Second World War and the Korean War, he was awarded 11 medals. That included the Military Medal and the Silver Star. Prince was also an advocate for the abolishment of the Indian Act. Broken Head Chief Gordon Blue Sky says it's important to keep Prince's story alive.
Sergeant Tommy enlisted at a time where he wasn't forced to enlist. He wasn't forced to be a part of the military action that was being taken overseas. He joined voluntarily, as many of our Aboriginal soldiers did then and still do today. I can only imagine what a person like Sergeant Tommy had to endure, carrying the traumatic, the PTSD that he already had from attending residential school.
The stamps are currently available for pre-order and can be purchased at Canada Post locations on October 28th. And those are the headlines for the ICT Newscast. A young man lost his life coming to the aid of a female relative. Blaine Poirier was shot on March 18th at the Grand Gateway Hotel in Rapid City, South Dakota. He died 16 days later. The incident sparked protests across the city, and the owner of the Grand Gateway Hotel banned Native Americans from the property. Indian Collective led the efforts to file lawsuits against the owners, and we're joined now by Indian Collective President and CEO Nick Tilson. Hi there, Nick.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
So Rapid City is the gateway to the Black Hills, and with that, of course, is land that is sacred to the Lakota and Cheyenne tribes. How do you think this lawsuit is going to play into the historically charged nature of Rapid City?
Well, I think that this lawsuit is, it's an indicator, right? That like, as we continue to organize here and as we continue to build power and speak truth to power, that we force the federal government, and in this case, forcing the Department of Justice to try to hold the community accountable, hold the system accountable for racism it's inflicting upon Native people here. And I think that we have to remember that in this lawsuit and in this struggle here, the Grand Gateway having the license to do this is part of a much bigger system of systematic white supremacy that makes it okay for this behavior to exist here. And so I think that the DOJ lawsuit, it shows that we have power when we organize, and that we have the power to hold the systems accountable when we come together as a people. So I think it could be a catalyzer for some of the conversations that have been far too long that need to be settled here in the Hizapa.
Nick, you're very heavily involved in conversations not only with organizers but protesters and of course this lawsuit. How would you sort of describe the atmosphere of what people are feeling right now? Are they feeling scared? Are they feeling empowered? What do you characterize that as?
I mean, I think the reality is that our feeling here in Mini-Luzaha, aka Rapid City, is that we see the racism all the time. We see the racism from the Rapid City Police Department. We see the racism from the city of Rapid City, from Pennington County, from the state of South Dakota all the time. And it shows up in the statistics, right? It shows up in the statistics of this community. You know, we're 9% of the population in the state, but make up 51% of the people incarcerated. And our people are constantly harassed by the police here and are constantly disenfranchised by the system. And I think that the case with Grand Gateway is like a mirror being held up to the society here, that everybody else now is for once seeing some of the overtness of the racism here in the community. So I would say that Indian people have been on the fight here. I think that we are well organized here. I think that we are, we are not backing down one bit, but we're also not going to allow this process to have racism be put in a little box as if just the Uris and Grand Gateway are the ones committing racism and perpetuating it here in this community. It is systemic. It's in all of the system here, which is the much bigger issue at hand here. This is the system that we need to dismantle. So I think the community is fired up and is continuing wanting to see real action. We're tired of broken promises and inaction by the government when it comes to honoring Indian people and our rights.
We are not backing down. That's what you just said. I want to talk about in terms of this lawsuit and what comes next, especially for Indian Collective. What do you think that looks like for you all?
It's a little bit unsure right now. I mean, let's be clear. The sequence of events here was that Indian Collective filed a federal lawsuit in the spring, right after this happened, and we mobilized the community here. And at that time, the Department of Justice launched an investigation into Grand Gateway. And what they did is they found out what we already knew to be true, which was that our civil rights were being violated, not only by the words that the Grand Gateway was saying, but by actually the actions of that business. And so now the Department of Justice is at the table and they are now investigating them. I mean, our hope here is that we see real true action, and the action being that they actually shut down the Grand Gateway for violating the rights of Indian people. Do I think that's going to happen? I have my doubts about the extent of what the Department of Justice will do to hold this business accountable. I hope that when they're here, as this continuing this investigation and continuing this lawsuit, that we continue to press on the Department of Justice to expand their investigation and expand the scope of their investigation into racism throughout the city of Rapid City, not just contained specifically at Grand Gateway.
Well, Nick Tilson will continue following these investigations and lawsuits. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Teachers in Oregon now have grade-appropriate curriculum to teach the history and cultures of the Confederated Tribes of Siletz Indians. This curriculum supplements Senate Bill 13, which was passed in Oregon in 2017. That bill, called the Tribal History/Shared History, mandated lessons about the 9 tribes in Oregon. It only covered a few grades. This new curriculum covers more grades and was announced this summer. It's meant to supplement the mandated curriculum. Dolores Pigsley is the chairman of the Confederated Tribes of Siletz Indians, and she joins us now to share more. Welcome, Chairman Pigsley.
Thank you.
So any curriculum takes a lot of time to create. Maybe tell us how long this native curriculum has been in development.
I would say it's been about 3 years. Not only did we have the information and the history, but putting it in order and in an order that it can be taught in the schools is a major undertaking. And all the 9 tribes in Oregon have completed the curriculum that's germane to their history.
And give our viewers an idea of the range of tribes in Oregon, and maybe how, that plays into this curriculum, as you just mentioned.
Well, there's 9 federally recognized tribes in Oregon. And of course, in developing history, some of our history overlaps. We don't necessarily always agree on other tribes' history as far as where we are and where we came from. But we all agreed that the curriculum needed to be developed and it needed to be taught in Oregon schools. I'm a product of Oregon schools, and growing up in Oregon, I never heard anything about Oregon tribal history, heard lots about the Plains tribes. So we're pleased that we're able to teach this in our classroom and to have our children have the ability to learn about the history of the Oregon tribes and their tribe.
And what exactly has been the reaction of children learning this curriculum, as you just said?
This is the first year, this coming school year that we're in, that the history will be taught. And so we're hoping that the teachers take it seriously and that it becomes something that the kids can be proud of in school. So we won't know the results until after the end of this school year.
And will this curriculum be taught in your own schools?
Yes. It'll be taught in the schools in the districts where it's germane, I guess, to the tribes. We currently teach it in our own school. It's a school on the reservation, and we teach language and we teach a lot of things that aren't taught in other schools across Oregon. But because this was legislation, it's mandatory, it will be taught, and it will be, I think we'll have a great result.
I want to actually talk about that result, because if we were looking, 10, 15, 20 years down the line, and this is something that Oregon children have just come to know in their everyday schooling, what do you think that ultimately will be an outcome of?
Well, I think it's always good to be informed, but I think history in Oregon has not been good to tribes in the past. We have a governor that's been reaching out to tribes, and that's how this legislation got passed, was because of the interest and because tribes have worked hard in the state of Oregon to be recognized. We have a Commission on Indian Services that gets major issues discussed that come from the legislature. And so the awareness, I think, is worth its weight in gold. Our tribe was a terminated tribe, and there are others in Oregon, and a federally recognized tribe years later. And so some of the kids grew up without knowing their tribal history, without knowing much about what Siletz is and how we came to be. But with Senate Bill 770, it will be taught in schools. In 20 years, these kids will be adults and they'll know about Oregon history, which will benefit all of the 9 Oregon tribes, I think.
And you just said that the governor has been pretty receptive, it sounds like, to legislation like this. And if these children are one day becoming lawmakers, I could absolutely see how that would be a full circle moment.
I do too. And in this last legislature, scholarships were awarded to Native American students from the state with state funding. And so Siletz has been the biggest user, I think, of those scholarship funds. So I think there's a real effort going on here that will produce really smart, young Siletz people.
Well, Chairman Pigsley, thank you so much for telling us about the curriculum that your tribe has created.
Yeah, and I'm really proud of our education department, and under that education department is our culture program, and they do a wonderful job with at culture camp, at powwows, teaching the language, basket weaving, many other activities that occur every single day and every single week and month.
Well, we'll be excited to learn more about that in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Electric car maker Tesla has announced it is partnering with the tribal nation for a second time to open up shop. In early October, the company said it will open a 35,000 square foot facility at Santa Ana Pueblo, which is located between Albuquerque and Santa Fe in New Mexico. The governor of Santa Ana Pueblo, Joey Sanchez, joins us virtually to share more about this partnership. Hi, Governor. Thanks so much for being here.
Hello, Hopa.
So tell us what this partnership with Tesla means for your tribe's economic development portfolio.
Well, here we see a future economy that's driven by energy and the electric industry, one that is less vulnerable to the events like the recent pandemic the world has experienced. So I guess the partnership with Tesla puts us into the new future economy where we can leverage that relationship as much as possible. Nowadays we're talking about green energy and how we can utilize that. And this just puts us at the forefront of that as a small tribal nation.
And what has been the reaction to this partnership with Tesla?
Very positive. It's been a lot of communities around us, pueblos around us, governors, some of our meetings that we had, they've given us a pat on the back, and they're very proud because it showcases not only us, the Pueblo of Santa Ana, but also the other pueblos within New Mexico on what we can do and making that effort to pull such a big company and work with such a big company and have that partnership for the benefit of not just only us, but the surrounding areas.
I want to talk about where this dealership will be located. I, of course, am from down the road at Kiwa Pueblo, so I know the area very well, but maybe talk about how location-wise this dealership is located in a place that would be really beneficial to Tesla.
Well, right now the location is built between right on 550 and Tamaya Boulevard, which is at the corner northwest of Santa Ana Star. And so it's an ideal location. During the groundbreaking and where we could publicly name the facility, we had a lot of Tesla owners come out, and they were very grateful that this facility was going to be within, I guess, walking distance, as they would say. But it just opens the door for, Rio Rancho, Albuquerque. We're 15, 20 minutes from Albuquerque, and there are a lot of Tesla owners out there.
Absolutely. And the other part that strikes me is that, of course, your hotel and your casino is a hop, skip, and a jump away from this new dealership.
Yes, so that adds that it allows them to go seek our other businesses. We have 2 golf courses. We have the Hyatt, Tamaya Hyatt, and then also the casino. So there's a lot of businesses within the area that they could see while their vehicles getting serviced or while they're waiting on other charging their vehicles. We'll have some superchargers there. So, and it's ideal location. We have the amenities to add to the area.
Governor, while we have you here, I want to talk about the midterm election that's coming up here in about 2 weeks. Maybe talk about what kinds of issues are important to your tribal nation right now, and what you're most looking at.
I think what we're most looking at is just for, having our voices heard. Having that seat at the table, having a true government to government talks. The consultations that they say that we are supposed to have is just sitting there and hearing our voices as a tribe, as a pueblo, hearing what our needs are. There's very needs for mental health, domestic violence, and taking those issues and really holding people accountable that aren't doing their job to make sure that these services and these issues are heard within our tribal nations.
We know that historically in the midterms, voter turnout is sometimes low. I'm curious, how important it is for you personally to get your tribal citizens out to vote in this election.
Oh, it's very important. I think the idea is to let them know that their voice counts, their vote counts. And in order for us to make change, we got to use our right to vote and go out to the polls and make sure that they, cast that vote. Yeah, some of us feel that, it's just one vote, but one vote can matter. And it does matter. So I think that effort for us as leaders to inform our community members to say, hey, go out and vote. Your vote does matter. It does help us pursue, the government services that we need, and also, understand that we as our people are putting these individuals in office, and they should hear our voices.
Well, Governor Joey Sanchez of Santa Ana Pueblo, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. For all the latest, visit ictnews.org. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives.
Sometimes you got to take a stand just because you know you can. Oh, you got to run, you got to run.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.